This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is John Strange.
Today, our guest is John Strange. John is an actor and he's a writer. He's written a lot of stuff, including the movie we have been talking about, Abrogation. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here in this situation because we go back a lot.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how many years it is.
Yeah, but there might be some things I don't know. I'd love to hear about those things, and of course, our friends would like to know about where you grew up. I know where you live right now, and that state, and
Right.
I know you have done a lot. And you also mentioned about back in the day you went to HB Studio and studied with some people whose names we have only seen in the books, right?
Exactly.
And then when I was living at 42nd and 9th Ave, and you had a total different picture of that part of the city.
Yeah.
So yeah, all that I'd like to know in detail. But let's start with your childhood.
Okay. What would you like to know?
Where were you born?
Okay.
How was the U.S. then? How were your parents? How they raised you? What was the moral framework, values, belief system you grew up with?
Parents. Well, my dad was a photographer in World War II, actually. And we don't know a lot about what he did, but evidently some of it was very secretive. We've got some very interesting photographs that he took during
You saw
War
those
II.
pictures?
Yeah, that we've got that are interesting, such as the picture of Mussolini when he was killed and hung upside down, which is a rare photograph indeed. And then he was a photographer, had a photography shop out of World War II, which failed. And then he went into evidently working for a company called Monroe Calculating Machines, which was the first, if you remember those adding machines where you used to have handles, you punch it in and then you pull a handle back to get, you're younger than I am. Anyway, the first adding machines were like that. They were mechanical, and you'd push all the buttons and then you'd pull a handle back and it would do the calculations for you.
It was like a calculator?
Yeah, like a calculator. And my father was assistant service manager in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I was born in Paramus, and
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey. And Paramus at that time was nothing like it is now. I mean, now Paramus is the largest shopping mall center in the United States, actually. And while I was living there, my father had a house in Saddle River. He had the foundation and the framing of the house put in, and then he built the entire rest of the house himself.
Wow.
Finished the downstairs. We moved in. The upstairs was empty. I'm not exactly sure my mother did at the time. I do know later on she was the bookkeeper for the Wandale school system, which is Saddle River.
So both your parents came from more of a middle class background.
Yeah, my dad's father ran away from home when he was 16. My original name is not Strange. It's Lipman. Evidently, we're just finding this stuff out.
Yeah.
He ran away from home. He was 16 and went to England.
He went to England from the U.S.
From the U.S.
Oh, wow.
And wound up living with a family named Strange. So he adopted the name Strange and had his name changed legally to Strange. And then evidently went to South Africa and fought in the Boer Wars. He was a surgeon. We actually have a search book here, which is so primitive, it's ridiculous. Rumor has it he was some important member of the South African Council assistant to the mayor or something like that.
Mm.
Then he came back to the United States, became head of the trolley system in Bayonne, New Jersey, opened up a candy store in Bayonne, New Jersey, and met my mom, who grew up in Union City, New Jersey. So my dad's parents were not entirely sure of what they were. My mother's parents were Italian and German.
So that's why you see
Yeah.
quarter Italian.
And my dad,
Yeah.
one quarter Italian.
Yeah.
So that's where my mix comes from.
Mm.
So when I was a year old, I moved to Saddle River, which was about a 4-mile move. Saddle River is now I think one of the highest per capita income towns in the country. So at the time it was very Italian. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Okay. And grew up there, and a lot of fun being there for the most part. You had to have a minimum of 2 acres of land, which is a lot
By law?
by law in the town. It's still the town.
So your house was built on a 2 acre?
2 acres.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what was strange, it was only basically, when we moved in, a 4-room Cape Cod with nothing upstairs, just an attic. And as time went along, my father finished the upstairs himself and added 2 more bedrooms and a bathroom. So then we had 2 more brothers.
And they are young?
They're younger.
Okay.
Well, obviously, if they came after me,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I know you have brothers.
Yeah.
I never knew the hierarchy.
Yeah.
So you were the in charge.
I was the old one.
Okay.
My brother Robert is 4 years younger than me, and my brother Michael is 7 years younger than me. In between Robert and me, there was a miscarriage.
So now these 3 boys and your mom, how did she raise you guys up? What was the most prevalent thing in the
My
household?
mother,
About overall atmosphere she created or enforced her ideas about life, belief system.
my mother was very dictatorial. Not a household where you had a lot of warmth for the most part. We were laughing about that the other day, my brother and I, on the phone actually, and about the fact that she was the type of mother who we all had chores. We would have to clean the house once a week, and then she would go around the house with white gloves to see if there was dust on anything. The inspection.
Yeah.
And if she found dust, we had to clean the entire house again, not just that section, but the entire house again. That was the type of.
And your father?
My father was a sweetheart.
So you used to have some sort of escape from the father, or like, hey, mom is so strict, let's go to the dad.
Yeah. I mean, the one good thing is in those days, very different from today, where, today you have a neighbor call the cops because the lady will let their children in the backyard without supervision. Back then, I would leave the house in the morning and my mother would have no clue where I was until dinner time. Maybe I'd show back up for lunch, maybe I wouldn't.
How old were you in that phase? How old were you when you leave for the whole day?
I don't know. I remember my life from about 4.5, 4 maybe.
No, the reason I'm asking, was it more like 7 or 8?
No,
or when
like,
you were more like 14 or 16?
No. We moved from Saddle River when I was 11. because my dad got transferred. So we're talking about more like 6,
Oh,
5, 6.
so 6-year-old kid could just spend a day out.
Yeah.
Without having a Wi-Fi. Not Wi-Fi, sorry, a cell phone.
No cell phones, no Wi-Fi, no beepers, no nothing.
Was the phone, the landline was there? The landline?
There was
telephone?
Okay. There were landlines, but no other form of communication.
But how was the culture, the environment? Was it dangerous? Like, oh my God, somebody might kidnap a kid or other fears. Like nowadays, I don't know why, but we even fear walking to a grocery store and we feel more safe if we are driving.
There was my street was a dead end street. Okay. Then there was maybe half again the length of our street to a highway called Route 17, which at the time was a 2-lane highway. It's now a 6-lane highway, which tells you the difference. And from behind our house, there was a farm, and then it was almost 2 miles to the next road. Okay, and that was filled with basically dense woods and swampland. And to the next side of us, there was a house across the street, and then there was another maybe 1/4 to 1/2 mile of dense woods, and then another street, which my aunt and uncle lived on. So we would actually, there was a pathway that we developed, walking through the woods to go to my aunt and uncle's house, which was pretty shortcut. But you didn't think about anything, like that. There was, you didn't worry about cars. I walked to school. As soon as I was able, they didn't have bus services there. My mom drove me when I was, that young enough where I couldn't really walk. But as soon as I could walk myself to school, ride a bike to school, that's what I did. And then when my brother Robert was old enough to go to kindergarten, then I walked him to school and stuff. Even on snow days, interesting enough, we walked.
So there wasn't a sense of threat.
No sense of threat at all. I don't even think a second thought was given to it, quite frankly.
Why do you think that was the case? Overall, the culture.
A lot less people, number one. A lot less people.
So everybody kind of knew everybody?
Yeah. As an example, I grew up Presbyterian. So a weird vision of Presbyterianism. I'm now an agnostic. So I'm going back here as to why that happened. But on our street, every Christmas, I have no idea how this developed, but either starting at our house one year or the last house at the other end of the street, we would start Christmas caroling on Christmas Eve. And then the people from across the house from us, the Linners, they would join us, and we would go down the street to the next house and sing in front of them, and they would come out and join us, and then we go across the street. And so by the time we got to the end of the street, the entire street was all together singing Christmas carols, and whoever was at the end of the street, one side or the other, would host, and we'd have like a Christmas party.
So there was more sense of being in a community.
Yeah.
And people recognized each other, recognized each other's kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty much.
Right. But, okay, I'm just curious. So Italian town. And you were Presbyterian. Your mother was a Presbyterian? Or
my mother, it's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. Which was...
But there was no
one of them were.
Okay. But there wasn't any tension of tradition, like, oh my God, they're not Catholic.
Well, I went to Sunday school every Sunday.
At a Presbyterian church?
Presbyterian church called the Old Stone Church, which is in Upper Saddle River.
Is it still there?
Still there.
Okay.
And it actually is an old stone church. Built out of like fieldstone, that kind of thing. Beautiful building.
And at home, were the practices such as not wasting food, or starting with praying over the food, not wasting food because there are people, or thanking God and all that, was that a part of the household?
The not wasting food thing was. The God thing didn't really enter into the household at all, but it was one of those households where you ate everything on your
Finish,
plate.
yeah.
You finished
Finish
your
everything that's on
plate,
your
whether
plate.
whether you liked it or not. I guess I could be called a stubborn child. My mom and I think, had a very acrimonious kind of relationship.
Because you didn't want to finish?
Well, I'm not a lay down kind of person. I'm the kind of person where if you tell me to do something and I don't think it's exactly the right thing to do, I'll ask why.
Why?
Or, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Kind of. So the best example I can give you is my mom used to make canned asparagus. I don't know if you've ever had
Canned asparagus? No.
asparagus.
Unless a restaurant gave me a canned one, I didn't know. But I know asparagus.
You don't want to. Anyway, I hated canned asparagus, and I refused to eat it one night. And so my mom said, well, until you finish that, you're not getting up from the table. And at 1 o'clock in the morning, my mom came down and in from the bedroom and said, you can go to bed now. I was still sitting at the table.
I mean, this
gives you an idea of what finishing the food,
Yeah.
Is. But my mom, we had a joke, is that my mom would cook something on Sunday and we'd still be eating some version of it on Friday.
Leftovers.
Leftovers.
Yeah.
So my two brothers and I did not eat leftovers. We don't care if there's anything left over. There's maybe one or two things that we'll do, but we never make another variation of whatever it is. Which is, everybody goes, you don't like leftovers? We don't know. We don't.
So while she was training you, for the lack of a better phrase, to be more disciplined, and you were the guy who goes after this why. So did she ever justify or give you a reason that you gotta finish because there are people who are dying of hunger, or they're like, oh my God, God will punish you or something, or it was just like, because I say so?
Well, you are, what country are you from?
Pakistan.
Okay. Well, I used to get, people were starving in India. That's what my mom would always say. So you have to eat your food here.
Otherwise, I'll send you to India.
No, and I would go, terrible thing probably to say is I don't know anybody in India.
No, I think there are more Indians in New Jersey than here.
I didn't know any, actually. I mean, for example, I did not meet. I told my wife this. Was it yesterday or the day before? I don't know how the conversation came up. I did not meet a Black person in person until I was 15 years old. Because I lived in Saddle River. I lived in Ramsey for 1 year, which was literally right across the highway from where we lived, because my dad got. I'll tell you that story in a little while. Then I lived in Williamsport, Pennsylvania for several years. And then I moved back to Spring Valley, New York, which is where I graduated from high school. Spring Valley High School is where I met my first Black person who was a student, who also became one of my best friends in high school, which was interesting. So I went, oh, you're Black. I actually said that to him, and he goes, oh, yeah, this. And,
I met my first African-American schoolmate in grad school.
Okay.
I met people of African background who were not born in the U.S. before that. But I never met an African-American until I moved to Chicago, which is so weird. But
Yeah.
same
Same thing.
Hispanic. The first, I think our program had only one Mexican American guy, and before that, no.
Yeah. It's,
So
it's
it was
weird.
so
I mean, it
weird.
doesn't happen
Yeah.
like that. I guess maybe in the Midwest or something,
Yeah,
but
that's where I was.
certainly not on the East Coast.
Right. Yeah.
Does that happen
Yeah.
anymore?
No. No.
So
So you graduated your high school in New York.
in New York, in Spring
Yeah.
Valley,
Okay.
Rockland County.
Okay.
Right.
How was that? How was because I know you have kids, and how was high school then versus now? Was it private or public school?
Public.
Okay.
Also, we had I had a graduating class of over 600
Oh, great.
people,
Mhm.
which is huge by any standards.
Mhm.
The classes now are, far
Mhm.
smaller than that. So that was kind of interesting. It was a good school, a really good school to go to.
Mhm.
I was extremely shy
Mhm.
as a child. I mean, so shy that when they were still doing the Pledge of Allegiance,
Mhm.
I couldn't get up in front of class and lead it. I would just, wasn't able to get the words out.
Mhm.
Which is actually interesting, is how I got into acting.
Yeah, because when I met you, you were like, I still remember your first ever scene in my project was flirting with a medical doctor.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay. And I remember the scene, she's giving you pills, and
Right.
you say to her, hey, what are you doing after your shift?
Right.
sweetheart?"
Yeah, exactly.
And she chokes back and says, oh, I live here.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, which is interesting. I never actually could tell that you were a shy person.
Oh God, I was so shy. There was a girl when I lived in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, who had a real crush on me, and everyone keeps telling me she was really cute, and everyone keeps saying, "This girl's got a crush on you. This girl's got a crush on you," and I was just scared like crazy, even just to approach her, and I never did. I never did. And then this other girl, when I moved to Spring Valley, she just hooked on to me like the second day I was there. And I became friends with her, well aware of the fact that there was more of an attraction than that.
Do you think it was because you grew up in a household which was so strict, and you might have developed some sort of fear that fueled that shyness and made you more abstain from reaching out?
Well, absolutely. In fact, I've been discussing that with psychiatrists my entire life. Insofar as my ability to handle mental intimacy, shall we say, and how far I can release that part of myself into a relationship, or can I do it and can I sustain it, or how soon does it end, or how far can I do it, and it certainly has, certainly did have a major effect on, how my emotions work.
So,
fair sex.
Question for you, for our friends who might not understand what mental intimacy is, would you be comfortable unpacking that a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know how like when you first get into a relationship and you're going out with a person a couple times, or maybe even it's just the first date, you just go, and it's like everything is like rosy, and you can't wait to see this person, butterflies, and you want to do anything for this person. It's like my current wife.
Mhm.
We met on a blind date,
Yes.
and we were just having drinks, and then drinks turned into dinner. And I asked her out. The second night I asked her out was for a party at my dad's house on New Year's Eve. And when I brought her back and dropped her off at her apartment in New York City, I remember standing on the sidewalk outside of her apartment and saying, "I'm going to marry this woman." You know, and I knew right away. It's just like, this
Spark.
that was there. And, you feel like you can't live without the person.
Yeah.
Almost. And, that everything you want to do things, and you just have so much fun, and you want to create, a life with this person. But I mean, love constantly wanes, no matter what. If you ever talk to anybody, no no relationship is always at the pinnacle. Sometimes it's in the depth of the valley.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There are ups and downs in every relationship.
Exactly. Me, for some reason, I tend to take a step back at some point in relationships, and it's never intentional, nor is it always predicated on anything. There's no series of events that suddenly, like in a marriage, suddenly we're arguing about our kid, because we need to educate them differently or anything like that causes the valley. It's just all of a sudden, I think maybe I start becoming unconsciously distrustful of the relationship or the possibility of the relationship staying, or my capability of sustaining my feelings, that type of thing. But that's that's all from my mother. That's basically from not getting it.
So those friends who are parents, and or they are in a leadership role, being a parent or a father figure to someone or a mother figure to someone, what would you say to them? What should they be careful about while parenting a kid?
Well, what I tried, I have two boys. One turns 38 next week, and the other will turn 36. In a month and a half, 2 months. And what I tried to do, which seemingly has worked, is not dictate to them. Nothing was ever black and white. It was never, you've got to do good. With me, it was, you've got to do good. You've got to be the best. You've got to be the best. And because I have a revolting part of me, I'm not revolting, but because there's a side of me that always fights back, I probably didn't try to do my best, just because I was told I had to do my best. With my kids, I always said, try to do your best. I know you're going to fail at some stuff, and you have to realize you're going to fail.
And it's okay to
and it's
fail.
okay to fail. Do I want you to fail? No. And if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, please don't ever, not come to me, and be aware of the fact that if you do come to me, I could be wrong. So my answers and my helping you are never going to be, perfect for you either. But do your best for us to trust each other, and that seems to have worked.
That's great. Yeah,
very,
some
very
praise,
well.
and I know parents would say you gotta have A grades, and especially our part of the world.
Yeah.
Things have changed now, and I think the media has done a great job in changing the mindset. Say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the idea was you have to have good grades so you could get to med school.
Right.
And even I know people who did not want to become a medical doctor. The idea was if you want to model or become a newscaster or actor or whoever, at least do that after you have the medical degree.
Right.
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 And it wasn't healthy. And it is never healthy to impose what you as a parent want.
Right.
Kids.
Yeah. I mean, I never pushed them to go in any one direction. I encouraged them if they showed a desire, to do certain things. Like my son Jake is a drummer, but professionally he works for a startup company doing basically product management for the most part. But he works on coding and other things of that nature, tech things in the company. I'm lucky in that both my kids are highly intelligent, and they're both people. My older son's a little bit more internal than my younger son, who's very magnanimous, for the most part. But they both did whatever they wanted to do. Elliot, the old one's a lawyer.
Yeah.
He wanted to go to law school. And Jake's always wanted to be a professional drummer, quite frankly. But he hasn't managed to get to that point because it's very hard to become a musician. You got to find the right people.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I don't think it'll never happen, but he does do some gigs on the side, and things like that. Did I encourage both of them once they decided where they wanted to go? Absolutely. And if they had wanted to do something different, absolutely, I would encourage them.
Apart from this imposing and keeping things black and white, what about the general discipline, the habits when kids are growing up? How was it for you, and how was it for your kids when you became a parent?
Well, my mom, until I was 15, would hit me.
If you didn't shower or
did things wrong, she would just go like that. I remember one time I had a roof outside my window. We lived for 1 year in Ramsey. My dad got transferred from Saddle River to actually from Saddle River. His office was in Fairlawn, and he became promoted to service manager from assistant service manager and moved to Williamsport, Pennsylvania. So we had a house being built, and I'm not sure what happened, but the house didn't get finished. No, I'm sorry, I got the timing wrong. They delayed the transfer, but our house sold in Saddle River so fast we had no place to live. So we rented a house across the highway in Ridgewood, and there was a roof outside my window which was sloped. And I used to love to go out on the roof and watch the stars at night. And my mom found me out on the roof one night and hauled me in and took my belt off and whipped me with the belt off. And welts all over. And my dad heard about that and saw what it looked like and got kind of pissed off at her. But what finally happened is one day when I was 15, we had a block party and my mom had made brownies. And I came in to get something in the house and she was in there, and I walked in the door and she said to me, "Why did you eat this brownie?" I said, "I didn't eat the brownie." And she said, "Yes, you did. Don't lie to me." I said, "I did not." And she went to slap me, and I went,
Mm.
And I grabbed her arm and I stopped it. And I said, don't you ever try to hit me again.
Mm.
15.
Mm.
And she got this look on her face like, and I just dropped her hand and I walked away. And she never tried to hit me after that. But I had had it after 15 years.
But
You know,
did it affect your relationship later with her? Because probably in her
Well,
view, you were a rebel.
I was a rebel all my life with her, I think. But I don't think the relationship with her was any different.
Mm.
It's just she didn't have a physical way of reprimanding me anymore. Is what it came down to. These are terrible stories.
Yeah, but stories make us learn and grow and see the struggles of humanity.